What if the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one yelling loudly, demanding attention, but the quiet one, pushed beyond every limit, who's finally had enough? Maybe that's you. Quiet, patient, always understanding, always forgiving. How long have you been holding it all in, suppressing your true strength to keep the peace for everyone else? You've been labeled sensitive, fragile, maybe even weak. Yet beneath the surface, you're silently carrying a storm no one sees. Have you ever truly asked yourself what will happen when you can no longer absorb the pain, disrespect, and manipulation from those around you? Imagine that moment clearly. Instant something inside you breaks open, not into tears or pleading, but into absolute clarity and calm determination. Carl Jung revealed something powerful. True strength isn't loud, aggressive, or imposing. Real strength is facing the deepest, darkest truths within yourself. You, as an empath, feel more intensely than others. You sense deception, you recognize hidden agendas, yet you keep quiet because you hope things will change. But what happens the day you realize they won't? This silence isn't weakness. It's your strength held back. You're not fragile. You're powerful beyond measure, holding yourself together because you understand the consequences of letting go. Carl Jung warned that the moment you confront your shadow, those hidden parts you've suppressed, is the moment everything changes. You don't become destructive, you become awake, aware, and unstoppable. Now face yourself honestly. How would your life transform if you finally stopped tolerating disrespect and began asserting your true boundaries? Who would you be if you stopped allowing others to dictate your worth? What incredible strength would emerge from within if, just once, you chose your own peace over theirs? People who drain your energy are not drawn to you by accident. They sense something inside you, something unresolved, unhealed. Like sharks detecting the faintest scent of blood and water, toxic individuals sense your hidden insecurities and move toward them instinctively. You might not see these wounds clearly, but those who thrive on emotional manipulation see them instantly. Think of yourself as a room filled with delicate glass ornaments, each representing past hurts, unspoken fears, and old wounds. On the surface, you may appear strong, stable, and resilient, but beneath that composed exterior lies a room filled with fragile things you've never allowed yourself to fully confront. A single careless word, a thoughtless remark about your competence, or an indifferent glance from someone you trust is enough to send those carefully hidden items crashing down, shattering your inner peace in seconds. Why does a passing comment about your abilities keep you awake at night, making you question everything about your worth? Is it because deep down, a part of you still quietly believes that criticism might be true? But the deeper reason for your pain lies in something far more uncomfortable to acknowledge. You've unknowingly placed the keys to your self-worth into someone else's hands. Every moment you react intensely to criticism or rejection is a moment you reinforce this hidden dependency. Imagine giving someone else the keys to your home and then becoming furious when they walk through your door uninvited. Who is truly responsible for this intrusion? Are they to blame, or is it you who surrendered your power? Every negative comment suddenly carries the weight of absolute truth because you've allowed another person's opinion to determine who you are. If you truly believed in your value, would their judgments affect you so deeply? Would a critical word still shake your entire sense of self? Perhaps the harshest truth of all is that you're not truly angry at them. You're angry at yourself because, deep down, you've never fully accepted or loved yourself enough to trust your own worth. Hannah sits quietly in her car after her manager's critical comments, but she's not crying because of the words themselves. She's crying because those comments reflect the self-doubt she's always carried. You too might find yourself feeling shattered after even the smallest criticisms because, like a fragile glass, your internal foundation hasn't been solidified. You're not upset by their harshness as much as you're heartbroken by your own internal agreement with their words. Ask yourself honestly, are you truly angry at them, or are you frustrated with yourself for never genuinely loving yourself in the first place? But there's a powerful turning point, an insight that changes everything. The day you realize your true freedom and strength lie in no longer borrowing your identity from external validation is the day you become untouchable. When your worth is no longer tied to someone else's approval, criticism loses its power. Imagine those who remain calm under constant critique, not because they're indifferent, but because they've recognized the truth that no one can hurt them without their consent. Once you clearly see this, external judgments become powerless. You don't avoid criticism or rejection. You simply become immune to their influence. Consider this deeply. Who would you become if your sense of identity and value were no longer reliant on others' opinions or words? How liberated would your life be? Your true freedom and strength emerge when you finally release your dependency on outside validation. It's not about creating walls or becoming cold. It's about knowing deeply within that your worth cannot be defined externally. Like those who've achieved profound inner peace through teachings like Advaita Vedanta, you understand your true identity isn't something anyone else can grant or take away. Your inner peace is unshakable because it comes from within, from the clear knowledge of who you truly are. Carl Jung called this journey individuation, the powerful and profound process of becoming your true self, independent of external influences. Ask yourself clearly, directly, without hesitation. If you no longer allowed others' judgments and expectations to define who you are, what kind of person would you finally become? You've been told your entire life that your empathy is your greatest weakness. That feeling deeply makes you fragile, vulnerable, easily manipulated. But here's the profound truth you've likely never fully embraced. Your empathy isn't weakness, it's restrained power. You've spent your entire existence quietly holding back an inner strength that others often mistake for passivity. You've tolerated disrespect, manipulation, and emotional neglect. Not because you're weak, but because your heart instinctively tries to preserve harmony even at your own expense. Yet consider this carefully. What truly happens on the day you stop holding back? What happens when the empath who's always been patient, understanding, and forgiving finally reaches their ultimate breaking point? This isn't about revenge or bitterness. It's about clarity and self-respect finally winning out. You see, beneath the quiet exterior you present to the world, there's a hidden power you've rarely allowed yourself to access. Carl Jung described this internal tension between who you truly are and who you've allowed others to define you as. The tension between your inner truth and the persona you've worn to please others. Empaths, by nature, sense emotional subtleties and pick up on others' hidden intentions with extraordinary precision. You've always known when someone's kindness was genuine or manipulative, when their words aligned with their actions and when they didn't. You registered every betrayal, every subtle manipulation, yet you continued to absorb it quietly, often telling yourself you could handle it. But Jung warned clearly. Those who continually suppress their true feelings, boundaries, and needs inevitably reach a moment where suppression becomes impossible. This isn't a sudden explosion, it's an awakening. The empath's awakening. Imagine yourself as a mountain, calm, steady, immovable. A mountain doesn't avoid storms. It simply knows exactly what it is. Fierce winds, lightning, torrential rain. None of it moves or weakens the mountain, not because the mountain is indifferent, but because it deeply understands its true nature. It knows its value isn't defined by external forces, praise, or criticism. The empath reaches their ultimate power in precisely the same way. You become the mountain when you realize your worth isn't negotiable, that your value doesn't fluctuate based on the careless opinions or judgments of others. Right now, ask yourself directly and clearly, Who will you become the moment you stop letting others' judgments and expectations define your identity? How strong, clear, and unshakable could you become if you finally stopped giving away the power to hurt you? Imagine the emotional predators who've taken advantage of your kindness, suddenly realizing they have no power left. When you no longer depend on external validation, manipulation no longer works. Criticism no longer wounds you. Rejection no longer breaks you. Not because you've hardened your heart, but because you've finally understood yourself fully and completely. You see clearly through manipulation. You recognize emotional exploitation before it even fully forms, and you consciously choose not to play along anymore. Carl Jung described the integration of your shadow as a transformative process. It isn't about removing your sensitivity. It's about harnessing and owning it fully. When you finally confront your deepest wounds, your fear of rejection, your desperate need for approval, your hidden insecurities, you become aware and whole in ways you never imagined possible. This process, known as individuation, leads you to psychological autonomy. You stop relying on others to validate your existence, and you become internally powerful and authentically yourself. Think clearly and deeply about this. What if your empathy was never your weakness at all? What if your greatest power has always been your emotional depth, your intuitive clarity, your profound sensitivity? And what if, instead of suppressing these strengths to fit into a world that doesn't always understand them, you embrace them fully and consciously? Your boundaries become unbreakable, not because you're aggressive, but because you've become deeply aware of what you deserve and what you will no longer tolerate. When you no longer allow external judgment to shape your identity, your entire perspective shifts. You stop apologizing for who you are. You stop accommodating toxic behavior. You finally say no clearly and confidently, not from anger or defensiveness, but from a calm, unwavering sense of self-worth. Your empathic nature transforms into your most potent strength, guiding you toward relationships based on mutual respect, authentic connection, and genuine understanding. Consider this carefully. If you were truly free from external validation, whose opinions would matter to you? Would you still find yourself reacting emotionally to careless remarks, criticism, or rejection? Or would you simply observe, knowing clearly who you are regardless of what others might say? Imagine living your life with such psychological sovereignty that manipulation no longer even touches you, let alone harms you. Imagine recognizing toxic patterns long before they affect you and walking away effortlessly, not because you're cold, but because you deeply respect yourself. Your journey as an empath has likely involved tremendous emotional pain, frequent disappointment, and continuous betrayal. But what Jung discovered is that pain, when consciously faced and integrated, transforms into profound wisdom. The empath who emerges from repeated betrayals is not weakened, but awakened. This empath no longer reacts impulsively. They respond consciously and clearly. They hold emotional contradictions with ease, feeling deeply yet remaining steady, compassionate yet firm, forgiving yet unwavering in their boundaries. Ask yourself this powerful question: who will you be when you stop giving your power away? What clarity will emerge when your sense of self-worth comes entirely from within, rather than from external approval? This awakening isn't just about protecting yourself from manipulation. It's about becoming psychologically invincible. Carl Jung described this state as the fully individuated self, someone who no longer seeks external validation to feel whole. Imagine yourself reaching this ultimate clarity. You're no longer trying to prove your worth because you've defined it clearly for yourself. Toxic individuals quickly recognize that their usual strategies no longer work. They sense your boundaries clearly defined, your values unshakable, and your self-worth unwavering. Manipulators become powerless not because you actively fight them, but because they have nowhere to enter. Their tactics fall flat. You become untouchable. Now reflect deeply on this once more. Who are you without external judgment, without the constant need for approval? What if you fully embraced your empathic strengths, not as vulnerabilities, but as your greatest assets? What if you no longer let anyone else determine how you feel about yourself, your capabilities, or your value? Carl Jung taught that true psychological maturity happens when you no longer seek completion outside yourself. The empath who awakens to their full power becomes emotionally sovereign. They move through life guided by inner clarity and self-respect. They still feel deeply, but their empathy is now selective, deliberate, and consciously directed. They no longer give energy to toxic relationships, not from bitterness, but because they clearly recognize what deserves their emotional investment. Ask yourself honestly, directly, right now. Who will you finally become the day you stop letting external opinions define you? How powerful, peaceful, and authentic will your life be when you become the mountain, calm and unshakable, no matter what storm rages around you? Your empathy isn't a weakness, it's your greatest strength. The moment you fully realize this truth, you'll become stronger than you've ever imagined possible. True peace isn't something you gain when others finally stop disturbing you. It emerges the precise moment you decide that external judgments and actions no longer hold power over your inner world. Think carefully about how much of your life you've spent waiting for people to change, hoping they'd finally see your worth, hoping they'd finally treat you with kindness. Has this waiting ever brought you the peace you desire? Or has it only deepened your resentment, intensified your anger, and drained your energy? The real turning point is subtle yet profound. It's the realization that no matter what others say or do, your inner peace is yours to claim. Nobody can genuinely affect your emotional state without your permission. Ask yourself this directly. How long will you allow someone else's careless words or thoughtless actions to determine your self-worth and emotional stability? Consider this simple yet powerful metaphor. Your peace is like a tranquil lake, untouched and serene at its core. Storms may pass, winds may rage, but beneath the surface, the water remains calm. The lake does not demand storms to stop. It simply remains unaffected by them. You too possess this ability to observe, acknowledge, yet remain untouched by external disturbances because your sense of self is no longer dependent upon external validation. Your identity, your worth, your inner peace, they exist independently from the noise of the world around you. So ask yourself deeply and clearly right now, who would you become the moment you stop letting external opinions control your emotions? How liberating would it feel if criticism and judgment no longer had power over you? What profound strength could emerge from within if your peace depended solely on your conscious choice, independent of outside validation? If you're truly ready to step beyond the emotional control that anger and resentment from external sources have held over you, make a simple yet powerful commitment right now. In the comments below, gently write, "I choose peace within myself." Just by writing these words down, you have already begun this transformative journey. Remember, peace isn't found, it's chosen. And the moment you consciously choose your own peace, your true healing begins.